Hi ladies. Happy Sunday. Okay, there we go. Give you guys a second to hop on here. We are more than halfway through the book, which is crazy. I'm gonna give you guys another second to hop on, but I'm excited, especially about chapter 11 today. There's so much content in chapter 11. Chapter 12 was a lot shorter, but just lots of tools that we can start to talk about and share together. Let's make sure we're live in group. So also, I wrote down BYO-PJs because I am totally wearing my PJs tonight, and I hope you're joining me. I had a long couple days that were really enjoyable, but my dad's been in town, staying in this room actually the last 4 or 5 days, and so he just headed off to the airport a little bit ago, and I'm just kind of energetically drained now, so happy to just be low-key with all of you tonight. So yeah, my dad was here, and I'm tired. How is everyone else doing? How was your weekend? How was your week since we chatted last Sunday? And again, we're more than halfway through the book, so there's my bookmark. We've read all of this, and we only have this much more to go. So that's pretty exciting. Except for not for our time to actually end, so we'll probably have to pick another book to keep this going. Okay, so chapter 11, super chock full of tools. Let's start to talk about some of them. So first I wrote down page 107 and was talking about we can change how we process, or we do change how we process sadness as we get older. And I'm just wondering if you guys have your book, maybe open up to that page. It's the last paragraph on page 107. And this really resonated to me because she talks about how, look at children, how they react when they're upset about something. They don't push away sadness until they're taught to later in life, right? So you see a child and they bump their head or their elbow or stub their toe or something, and it's like this immediate sadness that comes out of their little bodies, right? And there's no reservations behind it. It's like it just comes and it flows so naturally. And then she goes, take, for example, a couple of 5-year-old children playing. One of them grabs the toy out of the other's hand. The other one starts crying because he's sad about it, right? As teens, it turns into a different story. When someone steals a boyfriend, the behavior turns more passive-aggressive. So who can relate to that, too? So whether you're stealing boyfriends or not, but this very pure, like, genuine sadness that just comes out so naturally and fluidly for kids. And then as we get to be teenagers or wherever that shift happened in your life, then you get more passive aggressive instead of just letting that sadness be honored, and we always act like we're fine, or these passive aggressive tendencies start to come out. So she writes, as an adult, sometimes we react to a cancer diagnosis with anger, meanness, or blame instead of just being sad. So I just thought that, again, so if you're just hopping on, this is page 107, the last paragraph, and it's talking about how as children, we hit our elbow and we just cry. And as adults, we get something horrible happens in our life, or we get a diagnosis, or someone steals our boyfriend. Like, we get passive aggressive. And so for me, I can definitely relate to the phase in my life when I think I was more passive aggressive, and now it drives me up the wall, and I love just like this full honesty that can come out of people. And anything that is passive aggressive really starts to get on my nerves now, because it's like, just own the sadness, and it might not always be sadness, own the fear too sometimes. Fear is not something you want to stay in, but it's okay to honor it for the moment and be like, wow, this is really scary. And then start to rewire your brain and your thoughts towards the loving path, right? We have lots of ladies on. Hi, everyone. Pardis, Kathy, Christine, Catherine, Jen, Liz, Heather. Hi, everybody. So we're starting with chapter 11 here. And I'm just wondering if you guys have any stories or can relate to this idea that as a child, we own and honor our sadness. And then as we start to become an angsty teenager or even as an adult, I know plenty of adults in my life who are still very passive aggressive, that we don't honor sadness anymore and that we start to get passive aggressive instead, or other things too. So let me know how that feels for you, how that resonates for you. And Jen says, this really resonates with me. I was so angry when I was diagnosed. Now let's own it. Yeah. So instead of just being like sad or if you were angry, like maybe you didn't want to feel that full, like honor that period of anger. Like you might have been angry at the world and be like, why me? And so now we're, now it's like, okay, own that, whatever emotion it is, but like the purity of that emotion and that it's real and that we're not, like that's part of what makes us human. Totally. Cool. Okay, so then opening up my book. So then she talks a lot about meditation in here, and I was just wondering if you guys had any questions on meditation. I know a handful of you just did my 21 Days of Healing program, and so we've meditated a lot together. But she does talk about it, and it's hard, I think, in a book to really explain meditation. To me, meditation wasn't something I learned by reading it. It was something I learned by being guided through it and just experiencing it on my own. So if you have any fear or any other emotions around meditation, I'd love to hear that. And also love to know if you have any questions about meditation in general. Like, you can ask me anything. I can't promise I have the answer, but any questions on meditation, I just wanted to throw that out there for you guys. And she suggests some ways to get started as well, which do include not just reading about it, right? Because some of these things are written really beautiful, like these visualizations, and then you go to meditate about them and you're like, wait, what was I supposed to visualize again? So her suggestions on page 108 are join an online class or a community class to meditate with other people. Deepak and Oprah's 21 Days, they have ones for sale on their website, are also wonderful, as well as free ones that they run like within a period of 21 days. She says, set aside 25 minutes per day. This is a question I had for her. So she said, actually right here on the next page, ideally I'd like you to find 25 minutes a day to meditate. That's the golden number. And I'm just super curious why that's her golden number. And if you guys have a meditation practice that you come to regularly, how long do you meditate for? Yeah, I totally agree that audio meditations are wonderful. That, like, whether you're in a group or you're just listening to a recording, that allows you to retrain your brain to come back into that focus versus the, tunnel of thoughts that come up sometimes. What else does she say? She says, consider attending a 2 or 3 day meditation retreat. Buy a book on meditation. That one just personally doesn't work awesome for me. I like to be able to experience it. And then she writes that know that meditation does not inflict on religious beliefs. It is a form of relaxation, which is also important to know. And also that there's not like any sort of like set expectations of meditation, right? Like that you're not supposed to feel like you're floating in the air and like one with God or whatever you believe in. It's like you're literally just breathing and you're just like slowing down, and there's like no woo-woo craziness that has to happen in order for you to be meditating. I think that's important to understand too, because we see like Buddhists in their garns and their like lotus pose, and we think that we have to meditate for like a 24 hours straight or something in order to really be meditating, when it can be something you do in your car sometimes, and she talks about that too. So whatever I think your gateway into meditation is, I think that's beautiful. I think that we all kind of can get started in different ways, but as long as we're opening that door up and staying open about it. Okay, let me know if you do have any questions about that. And then I wanted to know, how about the exercise where you transfer the feelings of love towards the feelings those feelings of love towards something that you hate. So I think that's on this page, 110. So it's this whole something big will emerge exercise, and she talks about visualizing something that you love, like your kids, or for me, my dog, and being able to transfer those like very unconditional feelings of love towards something that you don't feel like you love. And I think she says, in your mind, picture what illness looks like and feel like it probably has a very definitive, energetic feeling for you of hatred. And maybe we're not all at that point anymore, but I can imagine we probably have experienced that if you haven't already shifted a lot of mindset around disease. So shifting or taking those feelings of love and transferring them towards the something that you hate, that's a big task to me. It is a wonderful exercise, but it's a big undertaking. So has anyone tried that, and what was your experience? You guys are quiet tonight. Maybe it's just because I'm tired. I was saying if you came on late that my dad's been here the last 4 or 5 days, and it's been really awesome, but I'm just a little drained. Okay. Any reactions? Was it easy? Was it hard? Let me know. And then I'm also just curious in general, what would you say that you're struggling the most with right now in your disease? Because I know she's talking about all these things, right? And part of this is forgiveness, part of this is reducing stress, part of this is shifting mindset and shifting love towards the things that we hate and just like this loving path, right? But what for you in like a very personal level is what you're struggling the most with? And that can be a symptom. The last question. Yeah, what would you say you are struggling most with right now in your disease? And then I also asked about how that exercise of transferring feelings of love towards fear or towards something you hate, was that easy or hard, or what were your reactions to that? And that's on page 110. The next question is just coming from me. Excuse me. And which is, what are you struggling with most in your disease? Kathy says, that exercise helps me love Mr. Disease. I can be more objective with it and not take it as personally. Christine says, following this diet. Yeah, that can be challenging too. And we haven't even gotten to that part, right? Like, we're talking about all these emotional things we want to try and like work on. But then there's the whole diet part too. Catherine, sorry, I'm driving while listening, so I won't be commenting much. Love the discussion though. Thank you, Catherine. Kathy says, my disease, not Mr. Disease. I kind of giggled at that. You can call it Mr. Disease. Christine, the method of transferring reminds me of EMDR. Having a good feeling and then thinking of the other thing will take some time, I think, for me. Yeah, like I said, it's a big undertaking. It's something that I think requires a lot of work and probably coming back to it over and over again, right? We don't shift. There can be like that snap, what is like the epiphany. She talks about that in a previous chapter, like this epiphany moment where you do change beliefs. And I had epiphanies in certain parts of my healing process, and other parts have been like nitty gritty, hard grunt work that like I am so grateful for, but that like I've had to keep coming back to over and over and over again to really let it sink in. I worked with an energy healer before, and she helped me remove some of my limiting beliefs, and she was just like, Sarah, this one's really stuck. And I'm like, yeah, I don't really want to let go of that one yet. So it just takes some time. Okay, Jen says, me, it's being compassionate. I had an episode today and was angry, disappointed, upset. For me, it's joint pain and sinuses. Need to meditate, feeling better. Snapping out of it faster now. Yeah, that's what I mean too, where you're going back to these tools over and over again so that you, first of all, they become more habitual, but also that they start to work faster, if that makes sense. And so Jen, if you don't mind sharing too, this episode today that brought up feelings of anger, disappointment, what was your immediate reaction, and then what was your shift in mindset during that experience? Okay. I'm just going to keep moving on, but keep answering any questions I've already thrown out there. I can keep coming back to them, no problem. I put a lot of sticky notes in here this week. So, and I was reading, and as my dad was driving up to Estes Park, Colorado, which is really beautiful, but really windy, definitely got a little car sick. I was like, oh, I can't read this anymore. So then I came back to it later, but so page, I keep wanting to say chapter, page 112 talks about, she says, remember, this is how it's supposed to be. Everything is okay. You can trust the timing of your life. You're not off on anything. You don't need to go anywhere, get anywhere, go anywhere. Everything is okay right now, the way it is. You are okay. And these are like really wonderful affirmations to start to put into your life. But there's something that kind of rang up for me while I was reading that. I was like, this really requires me the trusting part, right? So she writes, you'll start to realize that nothing is off track. The timing is right. Your life is right. And so that trusting the universe, if you will, for me brings up a sense of spirituality. I would not say I'm a religious person at all, but I would say I'm a very spiritual person. And I actually talked to my dad about this weekend, and I was like, hey, I've had this experience. I never really talked to him about this before, but I was like, since Jordan died, my brother died a year and a half ago, I told him that my sense of spirituality has just like exploded, basically. And I was wondering what his experience was, because he was already religious, whereas I wasn't. And he said no, that like he thinks about things in different ways, but his spirituality hasn't like blossomed the way it has for me. And I think part of it is that I never had this feeling of like trust, right? Or like the knowing of how to trust the universe. And so when I look at this stuff, it's like I have to bring spirituality into it in order to believe it in some sense. And so just wondering, like, does spirituality play a role in anyone else's healing process when they start to trust the process? So is it just trusting the process and like leaving religion and spirituality out? Because that could totally be the case. But for me, like I need to bring this sense of spirituality into it, that like is my own unique belief about the world that I think a lot of people can relate to, but that like I've created on my own in my own personal experience. Thanks, Heather. Jennifer, Jen. I was mad. I was in my head. What did I eat? Why was I so stupid? Inner critic. Yeah, that like little voice in your head. I then meditated and realized that this isn't helping and I need to work on healing and writing it out. Feeling better now. Good. So for you, it was turning towards the meditation and also that kind of click on of like, okay, this is not benefiting me right now. This is not helping me heal. I don't need to be so hard on myself. And I need to work on healing and writing it out. Yeah. And sometimes, like, especially if it's a food you ate, you can't necessarily, like, do any sort of snaps, but you do have to give it a little bit of time among other remedies that you can try too. So, interested about, and, like, you can share or not share your personal beliefs. This is a safe place to share that, and I'm sure we all have different beliefs, but to me, when Jessica really like hones in on this, like, you are okay, like trust all of these things, right? This is how it's supposed to be. Everything is okay. You can trust the timing of your life. It's, to me, that really brings in my spirituality. So if anyone has anything to add to that, let me know. And then on the next page, 113, I wrote, this is actually kind of funny. I know it's backwards for you guys, but I just wrote love and like arrow because I like loved number 3 here, which was that you don't need to go outside of yourself. Kathy says, I have practiced that as a coping and comforting and spiritual practice since I was young. I have always had a connection to source. It has allowed me to survive emotionally. Yeah. And so that's a different experience from mine, right? Where it's like that it was this, when I was younger, I asked a lot of questions, and I was like, what is true? What is real? And I was like much more of a science-y kind of girl. I graduated with my bachelor's in biology and thought I wanted to be a MD doctor and all these things. And right, so like my beliefs were like very like science-based. And so I asked a lot of questions as like a teenager and like in my very early 20s. But didn't find the answers I was looking for. So like kind of just stayed on this path of like agnostic, I guess you would say. And I wasn't raised any certain way. And so then, but then now, like I said, like there was this huge cracking open inside me that like literally, and I know I've shared this with some of you if you've been following me for a while, but like I have stories that like literally make no sense except for that there is energy in this world. And that's just me, right? Like I honor everyone's belief system here, but I don't also mind sharing a little bit about me and my personal life and my personal beliefs, which have shifted a lot over time, and also allowed, I love what you said, Kathy, which was allowed me to survive emotionally. And I don't know if I was surviving emotionally before, because now I feel like I have something to help me survive emotionally. It is magical. Yeah. And sometimes things just happen that have no explanation. Carly says, spirituality plays a big part in accepting how my illness has changed the course of my life and being okay with where I'm at. Yeah, so expand if you can, Carly, and let us know, like, you say spirituality's played a big part, so how has it played that big part in being okay? Heather says, my religious beliefs tell me that wherever I am is the right place to be in the form of God is in charge. Oh my gosh, I just pushed cancel by accident, but I'm back. I was trying to read your comment, Heather. My religious beliefs tell me that wherever I am is the right place to be and the form of God is in charge. But believing that all the time is very hard. I worry that I've done something wrong or made a series of choices that led to my illness. Yeah, what do we, that was kind of like talked about a little bit in the beginning of the book, where it was that by like accepting our illness and honoring our illness, if you are a law of attraction believer, it's like, why would I be in this moment of sadness or this acceptance of illness when law of attraction says like that you want to like put out the energy that comes back to you? And so it's easy to put blame on ourselves, I think, or think that because X, Y, and Z that I did in my life, now karma says that this has to happen to me. But what I've found through my experience is that I really wouldn't change anything, and that like all these, like, there's been some really hard stuff, and it's led me to this place, and this place is beautiful, and it's far from perfect, far from perfect, but it's imperfect in a very beautiful way, and that, like, those, because of X, Y, and Z, I am here now, right? And that has helped me align with my true self and my true life's purpose and mission and gift to the world. I love talking about this stuff. Okay, so what do I want to talk about next? So I started talking about it. So page 113 with my little love arrow here, which is number 3, I love, it says you don't need to go outside of yourself. And she talks about love. So like love is instantaneous, but you have to ask for it. That's another cool aspect about it. So love is within in ourselves, but there's so much more within ourselves too, and that's a lot of the message I put out into the world, which is that you can be your own greatest healer given the tools, right, and the mentors, and like, but then once you have them, you have this great toolbox to be able to tune into whenever you need help. And so there is so much inside of you, and so I can also relate to like previous version of me, which, and I'm curious if any of you guys can relate to this, like who else used to go out and buy all the quick fixes, right? Like, you know, the stress buster pill and the weight loss pill and the pill that clears your skin and the pill that makes your hair long and flowy and thick and gorgeous, and like, you know, all these quick fixes like that you would go out and just try to find outside of yourself, right? This fix that, well, if I just take this, or if I just go to spin class, or if I just go to yoga or whatever, then X, Y, and Z, I'll be happy, I'll be pretty, I'll be healed. When there is actually so much love and healing inside of ourselves. And so I can definitely relate to being that person that was looking outside of myself and realized that it's all inside, right? Like I still use things like crystals and essential oils and things that are like not innately inside my body to help promote my healing process. But I think I've also learned that a lot of the biggest like epiphanies and the biggest aha moments and biggest leaps of growth for me have been very much realizations within myself and letting go of limiting beliefs. Sometimes I'm there, Sarah. Yeah. I used to love the quick fixes, except for that's the thing, they weren't quick fixes. They didn't actually work. Okay. At the bottom of this page, she talks about Ho'oponopono, and I know a few of my 21 Days ladies are here, so you guys know about Ho'oponopono, and some of you already know about it just because of your own studies in life. But I think this is a wonderful practice of forgiveness. And actually, Jessica has a separate group on Facebook. I just remembered this. And what is it called? I think it's called 100 Days of Ho'oponopono, I think. I don't know if she's at 100. It started probably, I think she started around the beginning of the year, maybe. Someone can throw that in there if they have that information. But it's all about love and forgiveness. And so she goes through some like explanation of it and how to do it, right? And she writes, when I'm in conflict with a person, an issue, or a person, I close my eyes and I think, I'm so sorry we had to do it this way. Please forgive me. I love you and I love myself. It helps resolve conflict because it resolves it inside of yourself. Forgiveness provides that release. And I think a couple things. First, that's again showing that you have this tool already inside of yourself, which is that you have the tools to forgive. You have the tools to forgive and give the energy back to the person that maybe did you really wrong, or to forgive yourself for judging yourself, being that hard critic, letting that negative self-talk voice come up too strongly today, whatever that is for you. But you have the power to be able to release that energy and move towards a more loving energy. And so when we did it in our 21 Days program, I had everyone visualize this person, right, who you've had any sort of adversity with, really. Like one of mine would be like my freshman college roommate that like eventually I was like, why am I still holding on to this anger, right? I'm like, she did me so wrong. And then, like that's no longer serving me. So it could be that, it could be a parent, it could be a boss, it could be a coworker, like it could be a sibling, it could be anyone in your family. And so putting that person 3 to 4 feet in front of you visually, right? Like you're imagining that person. And I also mentioned that if the person, for example, if you've been a victim of sexual assault, domestic violence, something like that, and this brings up a lot of emotion for you, that you would maybe want to put them a little bit further away. Or if there's any sort of violence in the relationship, I would put them a little bit further away in your mind when you are imagining that person, right? When you're putting that person there. And it's just like this simple exercise of, I close my eyes and I say, I'm sorry, forgive me, thank you, I love you. And by saying, I'm sorry, forgive me, and then, giving them their energy back to them, and then giving yourself both gratitude and love, is really powerful. And it's even more powerful when you do it over and over again. So like you literally just, I'm sorry, forgive me, thank you, I love you. I'm sorry, forgive me, thank you, I love you. Over and over again. And like sometimes I start crying, sometimes it gets too heavy and I have to come back to it later, but it's this very powerful practice of forgiveness. And she explains it a little bit of a different way, but that's one way that I've used it that has been really powerful for me, that you're welcome to try on your own. Christine says, so hard for me to do that for others. I can imagine doing it for myself, as bad as that might sound, but for others, like school staff, etc., that have hurt my kids, I am just not able to do it right now. Yeah, so you're saying, like, if you're hard on yourself, you can forgive yourself, but that if someone has been bad to your kids or done you wrong in some way, that you aren't able to forgive them. And I think I understand that, in that it's hard, but that part of what makes it a little bit easier, I think, is also understanding that by holding on to that energy, you're holding on to their energy and not opening up to, by forgiving, opening up to possibility and release and joy and healing, right? You're holding on to this tension in your body, which is an emotional tension of anger, frustration, or resentment, but then it becomes a physical inflammation or buildup in your body as well. So, because remember, she talks about like the heart and the brain being very connected. But it is hard. I can't say it's easy. It's never been like easy for me, but it gets easier. And I think sometimes I'm a little bit of the opposite, which is because I've always been so hard on myself my entire life. It was harder for me to forgive myself and say, like, Sarah, it's okay. You don't have to be perfect. And like, you were too tough on yourself today and you're doing great and you're doing fine, right? That is harder for me to say than forgiving somebody else. Even in some really crazy situations. Absolutely. I think I need a mantra of sorts that would be right for me. Example, like, I respect you, etc. Just different visualization. Yeah. And you can change it around. But there's some forgiveness statements in here too, right? So I forgive myself for believing loving someone isn't safe. I forgive myself for believing God forgot about me when I got my MS diagnosis. I forgive myself for believing that I'm not worthy of good health or healing. Well, I wanted her to give some examples of forgiving other people, but she only put examples of forgiving herself. But you could flip those scripts a little bit to see if those might help you as well. Okay. 5:35. So that's, chapter 11 was a lot longer than chapter 12, right? In chapter 12, though, I liked that, I also loved the affirmation at the end. Her affirmations are really on point here. But page 121, a loving affirmation. I believe in myself. I believe everything happening in my life is bringing me closer to wholeness, not further away. I love that. But chapter 12 is just a few pages long here, and she gives the example of Holly's happiness approach, and it's really about letting illness create opportunity, right, rather than hold you back or be this life sentence, right, that it actually can allow you to open up to opportunity. And so that's a good kind of reflection piece for me personally, and let me know what you guys think. But when I stop and like journal on this or just like think about it in my quiet time, I think about, okay, if I had to write down, or if I'm actually going to write down all the things that have happened because of illness versus like some of the pain or discomfort I've been through, to me, I'm like looking at this list and I'm like, oh my gosh, like my life would not be the way it is now without this. And that can be hard, especially in the beginning of illness, and we're all in our different places, right? So like that list for you might not look extremely long, but she talks more about how do we let this illness create opportunity, even if it hasn't yet, right? So you might be able to write that down and say, like, I've met this person, I have this awesome community, I found this sense of spirituality, I trust the world now, I learned more about food and nutrition, I know how to feed my family healthy, I'm better at giving myself love and self-care, I found yoga, I found meditation. Like, what are these things that have come from your disease and you being, like, researching a little bit too and looking deeper into disease. There's that, and then there's also this idea that we're letting it create opportunity. So there's more to come, right? So if your list isn't very long, don't fret. Heather writes to Christine, maybe you did your best, you didn't know, you have your own problems for school stuff. Yeah, I love to, so if someone's just like bitchy to me sometimes, like that I don't know, right? So you guys can probably relate to this, like you're out in public, and this happened today. My dad opened the store door at like just like a little touristy like shop. He wanted to buy a t-shirt for his wife, and he opened the door and he walked in, and the woman was like, like, because I guess she was trying to walk out and my dad didn't see her, and she just like scoffed at him like he was so rude. And I just like I don't try to giggle out loud, but I'm like, wow, she probably has a lot of things going on in her life that I don't understand and I don't know, and all I can do is send her love, because like clearly my father was not trying to be rude, and she could probably work a little bit on her forgiveness. So just like trying to realize that like sometimes people don't act in a way that is because of you. It's very much so because of them and what they're going through, or like what frustration, resentment, anger they have that they're stuck on into their life, or that happened earlier in their day, right? Like I've gone to get coffee or something back in the day after like crying my eyes out, and I don't really want to be around anyone, so I'm like in there and out of there, and I'm not chatty Cathy and I'm not smiling at them, and they like, that's because of me and what I was going through that day. It had nothing to do about them. So you can see both sides of it a little bit. Absolutely. Oh no, I read that one. Cathy, I release you. Yes, that's a great one as well. Like you're releasing their energy. And for me, it was like, even like, I was like almost getting defensive for my dad. And I was like, why is this woman so bitchy? Like, and she just like, she even walked out and she was still looking at him like, like, and that's where it's just like, why? I don't need her energy. I'm, like Cathy said, I release you, and like we're both gonna go on with our days and our lives, and honestly like sending you love, because you probably have some things to work on. Good. Okay. Yeah, I just wrote, honestly, I'm really grateful for everything I've gone through in my life, disease and otherwise, because that has so much defined my belief system, the tools that I've created, the wonderful people I've met, the community that I resonate with, and being able to fine-tune passions as well and develop the self-care routine, among other things. But it doesn't mean that the things that I've been through or you've been through in life have been easy by any means. Okay, and then I asked, I think I was talking about, page 126. I wrote, who can let themselves spend time in their sadness? And so that was this exercise on page 126 again, which is spend a moment or two each day with your sadness. When you're driving to the grocery store and the kids are in the backseat of your car, you have 2 minutes to yourself as you drive. Say to yourself, I'm going to be okay if I'm sad. I'm sad right now, and this illness is sad. Jen, I'm angry today. I don't have all the answers today, but I'm trying. I forgive myself, etc. And so I'm just curious too, like sometimes we're so stuck in this I am gonna fight this, and like I'm always gonna win, or I am this fighter, that you see this as being someone who's weak, okay? And so I'm curious if some of you are still stuck in that mindset that like this to you is like, no way am I going to let myself be sad because that's weak, or because I shouldn't be, right? Or whatever your reason is behind it, like consider whether that's true or not, and can you sit in your sadness? Have you sat in your sadness? What does that feel like? Here's an embarrassing story. Last night I watched Nashville, the TV show, and I watched the most recent episode, and I cry. When anyone cries on TV, I cry. I can't watch the news because I cry. I really like love stories and stuff, like kind of sappy stuff, but like I'm gonna cry. And last night I was watching Nashville, and I'm not gonna spoil it in case anyone watches that show, but like I was just crying and crying, and I was like, first I was like, oh, Sarah, it's a freaking TV show, why are you crying? And then I was like, you know what, I'm sad right now. And so I just honored it, and it's like stupid, right? Like it's a TV show, but like whereas my voice normally would have been like, okay, like what the hell are you doing? I was just like, whatever, I'm just gonna cry. And there's probably more behind these tears, honestly. Like the TV show like provoked it, but there's probably more behind these tears that maybe I've been holding back. And I've worked with somebody before who, she was just like, you know what, if you can't get yourself to cry and like get that emotion, to like honor that emotion and let it go and release it, like watch a sad movie that like starts the waterfalls a little bit, and then just let them go, because there's probably way more behind it than somebody, like whatever happens in a TV show behind those tears. My kids had the same terrible genetics I do. Now I have a lot more information on how to treat their conditions to prevent future problems. Right, so that's one way where you can look at like this deep gratitude behind what you've gone through, so that you are able to influence and, you know, bring up your kids, educate your kids, and take care of your kids in a way that allows them to hopefully not develop like autoimmune disease or diseases, right? Because we all know that we're more likely to have more than one. So there's my silly story about spending time in sadness, but also just like today I'm like a little emotional today. I told you my dad's been here, and like it just brings up a lot of emotions for me, because my brother and sister hung out with us too, and it's my parents have been divorced for a very long time, but he comes out, and it's like we always did this thing in February where he would hang out with his 4 kids, and there's only 3 kids now, and it's just hard. It's just really hard, because there's like this deep gratitude and happiness and joy of being able to spend time with my father, but then there's this missing piece. My brother's not here. And so when we see each other, it's like this deep love and joy and happiness, but at the same time, Jordan's not here. And so it's emotional and it's sad. And I think that's something too that we have all started to open up to each other about, is like my dad pulled away 3 hours ago in his rental car, and he texted me and he's like, oh, the song came on and I'm crying. And it's just like this, you know, it's my father, this man is like being vulnerable about it. And I honestly, I love it and I appreciate it so much, because like when a song comes on and makes you feel sad, cry. And like maybe if you're like at your desk with a potential client or something, it's not the right time to cry. But like otherwise, like, can we just honor that sadness and make it a really beautiful thing? Carly says, I think accepting my sadness and sitting in my sadness has been a big missing piece of the grieving process I was missing. I think I fear my sadness because I'm afraid of it. I'm afraid it will swallow me. Each day is such a struggle that I cope by pushing through and ignoring my emotions. Yeah, I can really relate to that too, Carly, where you're like, well, if I crack down now, like it's the floodgates are coming, like it's not going to stop, or I'm going to fall into this deep dark hole. And so I understand the fear behind that. what I've learned is like that if it becomes more of a regular practice, that it can be something that you let go of, or release or honor, and that by doing that, you're more frequently, you're able to, like, I don't want to say snap back into it, but you're able, you released it so that you can like more fully, like be more capable of like going and doing the next thing in your life, like whether it's an errand or a presentation or whatever. Like you're no longer holding on to that piece, and by releasing them all, like when they come up and honoring them, I think it allows us to be more fully present and available emotionally and physically, because like it sticks in our body too, in all other aspects of our life. So you can think about it that way too, where like that you're actually doing yourself a great service. Heather feels the same way as Carly. Yeah, it is. It's like you said also, though, it's a big missing piece of your grieving process, is that you haven't let yourself honor it, or maybe just not fully or completely. And so then it becomes missing, and then we, I think, build up more and more fear around it, because it's like, yeah, I really haven't touched that. I probably don't ever want to, not interested. And that, I think that sticks with us more than we know, whether it's something from childhood or it's something from last week, like that if we do keep pushing it away, eventually we realize that we have and that it's there. We probably should process it, but then this mind in our head is, or voice in our head is like, no, I don't really want to. And all I can say is that like by honoring it and allowing it to process and release and like feeling whatever that emotion is, it's just like a very beautiful and magical experience. Carly says, I like what you're saying, Sarah. That makes a lot of sense about making it a regular process. Excuse me. Yeah. Because then, like, you honestly, like, I think a lot of us have just become very much so less emotional people in general, at least on the exterior. So our interior might still feel all of the feelings and roller coaster ride, but then on the exterior we put on this painting, this mask, this visual of I'm fine, I'm perfect, everything is okay, and I'm put together, right? And so, but inside there's like this turmoil of whatever you're feeling that isn't really being shown on the exterior. And I think that's very much so part of what society tells us, is that like we have to always be okay. And the more I've spent time with, I think, women who understand this and get this and allow me to be fully me and I allow them to be fully them, is that like we've just been told from a very young age that it's not okay, when really this is part of being human, right? Like we're sad and we're angry and we're mad, and like there is a roller coaster, and it's not that we're like literally jumping around every 2 seconds, but like today was an emotional day for me. Most of the time I'm happy and some days I'm emotional and sad, and so like that's why I have no problem telling you guys that. It's like today was sad and hard for me because my brother wasn't there, and it's like, to me it's so it's heavier, there's a heavier emphasis on it when the rest of my family is here, and then you just like there's more emphasis on him not like being missing, right? And so there's my full truth and honesty, right? And like transparency is that today was hard, and I'm not trying to tell you all that it was like butterflies and giggles and rainbows, even though I like all of those things, and some days it feels like that. Like today wasn't, and I'm letting myself feel all those feelings. That resonates, that the longer you avoid it, the scarier it may seem. Sorry, guys. My daughter had cancer 4 years ago, and I never did much processing of all those emotions. The farther it gets, the harder it is to talk about. Yeah, I agree with that too. In that, like, so first of all, you're saying I never did much processing of all those emotions, and it might have been so overwhelming, and you might have been trying to keep yourself together for your daughter, right? Like, so that you could make the best decisions and be the best caretaker and lover and mother that I'm sure you were and are. So there's definitely like a shock in those moments. I'm sure there was many moments, but now what I experience is that I love the opportunity to talk about my brother, and it's not always easy, and it's definitely not always happy, but that people, number one, are very more willing to listen probably than you think, but also that the opportunity to talk about it can feel really good. So I would just encourage you, Heather, to start to try and talk to somebody about it, whether you're posting in this group or you're finding a close friend or relative, to just say like if you went to them and you were like, I'm sure this person that you'd be approaching probably would already know that your daughter had cancer 4 years ago, and you went to them and you just very vulnerably were like, I really need to talk to you about this. Like, remember when all this happened, and I haven't fully processed this, and Sarah Small told me that I need to talk about it, so can we talk about it? And like, let all of the feelings come out. I know that if you came to me, even though we've never met, but if you came to me and you said that, I would say, oh my gosh, yes, I'm willing to be the best listener for you possible, and please share your story with me. And you never know too, like by sharing that, like you might affect me or whoever else you're talking to in ways you don't know, but also you're helping heal yourself and release those emotions. Carly, some of the things Jessica says throughout the book have helped me with this. I'm having a hard time right now, and I'm loving myself having a rough time. Right. So you're sending love even though it's rough. I'm doing a good job taking care of myself as I'm feeling sad right now. Right. So saying, I'm sad and I'm going to honor that sadness, while at the same time doing a good job of taking care of myself. And she has several of those in there. Carly, I don't know what page you got that one from, but I think it was from this past, maybe chapter 11, where it's like, I'm doing okay, like, and I'm sad. Like, it can be both, right? So I think those are great points to make. All right, ladies, any questions? I would encourage you guys all, even regardless of whether you're feeling sad today or not, but next time that comes up, to honor it. I know we went on a little bit of a tangent there. Thank you for listening. I also love the affirmation at the end of chapter 12, which is, I am the author of my life. I am the author of my life. So take that with you as well. Okay, I'll see you guys next Sunday, 5 p.m. again. And again, we're more than halfway through the book. So if you ever, if you look through the rest of the chapters and have any interest in hosting or co-hosting with me, that invitation is still open and available to all of you as well. Otherwise, I'll be here with you next Sunday, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Love you all. Good night.